Hi. So this week you're going to be meeting keyboard player, vocal coach as well from time to time as he's worked with the gospel choir, and just all around serious nice guy. This is Michael Davies. Hi. Right. Now, this is my friend Michael Davies. And Michael and I met at a Philippa, well, it wasn't a Philippa Hanna concert. Whose concert was it?
I think it was Wet, 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 and she was a support act. I
She was
think it was that.
supporting them.
Yes.
That's right. So it was in Birmingham.
Birmingham NEC, yeah, just
Yeah.
outside the main
And
centre.
and and Andy Baker had organised tickets for Kevin and I, and coincidentally for Michael. So we met Michael Davis, who at the time was doing kind of trying to keep the finances of Resound Media on a level. And we got chatting and we became friends at that point. And the
Absolutely.
weird thing was that it was some years later that I discovered that you were an unbelievably good pianist. And we were running the gospel choir. We had been invited to play on the main stage at the Upton-on-Severn Blues
Yes.
Festival.
Remember that, yes.
And and it was a cracking opportunity, and we didn't have a pianist or a keyboard player available. And I was just phoning everybody I can think of. And I phoned Andy and I got something along the lines of, yeah, our financial controller can play all right. and, and we met you and you were phenomenal. And
Well,
well, we met you again, more to the point, and you were phenomenal. And ever since that, we've written all sorts of songs together and done all sorts,
yeah,
haven't we?
absolutely, yeah, absolutely amazing. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's interesting how far back we actually do go.
Yes.
And it was literally a chance meeting. And I think Andy mentioned at the time when it came to the Philippa Hanna support gig. And, oh, you'll meet Kevin and Penny. They're wonderful people. I said, okay, fine. Went along, and we literally got chatting straight away. It was like, can you do this? And can you do that? Do you know about this? And yep, yep.
Yeah, always very quick to rope people into things.
I think it was singing with you after some male vocals on some songs or
We
something.
did once because you can also sing really well.
I sing a little bit, yeah, yeah, a little bit.
But you can, and you were really great at helping to arrange vocals and things of that sort. And then you came and started doing workshops with the gospel choir,
Yeah,
and the
and
gospel choir all fell in love with you.
oh, lovely. I miss them.
And then of course we ended up writing some songs together, and we wrote So Silently together. We wrote the Christmas song, Tired
Yeah,
Donkey song,
I
that was
don't care.
together. What
Yeah.
else have we done? There might be a few
That ain't
others.
living. I think that ain't living we done.
That Ain't Living was with
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Yes, of course.
I think there's one more that is that didn't
Yeah.
spring to mind. Yes.
But anyway, so how did you get started in the whole keyboard music church world? How did it all happen?
Yeah. Grew up in church, black led, black majority as they call it, Pentecostal church in Birmingham. And it was always a feature that the church always had great musicians up and down the country. So there were church branches in most of the major cities and towns across the country. And typically there were great pianists, guitarists, drummers. I happened to be in a church region where there was a guy called Stephen Thompson. He was a young prodigy. He works with Graham Kendrick now and many other well-known worship leaders. He was what aged? I think he was playing from the age of like 4 or 5,
Yeah.
and this was remarkable. And I didn't really start playing. We had a piano in the house, and so I was about 8 or 9 years old. I'd sort of knock around on the key, but didn't really play. I
Was
heard him.
was your family musical, or were you something that came
Not
along later?
necessarily. No one in the family was musical per se. My younger brother, he plays guitar and bass now, but at the time, no one was really doing anything musical. You were always taught to sing in the church choir, so music was part of your church life, but there was nobody doing any music that I thought I could follow. But I heard this Stephen Thompson at age 11, and he was just absolutely magical. It's like wow, and I wasn't necessarily into piano, but I just heard him thinking this is fantastic, and just took a real liking to that, and thought let me try and establish my chords and do what he does, and so it's really mimicking some of what I heard from him.
I remember
Uh,
you talking to me very much about getting that left hand going.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there were so many guys around the time who made their left hand work and do things with the left hand that you typically were playing one note and a chord, and these guys were doing a full octave, and then they were putting chords in their left hand. It's like, wow, this is amazing. So you kind of learned by listening and watching how to develop that sound. I mean, I play by ear, so
Yeah.
the more you heard, the more you assimilated, and the more you kind of developed in that way. And then you end up playing with other people, and you just get a sense of different styles, different ways of doing things, different voicings. So eventually I was playing in church on every Sunday. I joined a group at the time called the Majestic Singers, who were back in the talking 70s, late 70s, a well-known, well-travelled kind of gospel choir, but with a difference. And travelling around the country with these guys, playing in lots of different venues. Did Royal Albert Hall with them when Lewis Palau came to London on mission, London.
Yeah.
And just got into the whole sense of playing on. This was every weekend you were out somewhere, travelling, playing. And that routine of playing regularly, playing different songs, having to learn what was very complicated music. We were typically doing American gospel-esque songs, and these guys were always ahead of us, and they wrote well, and they structured their chords amazingly well. So literally, you listen to an old LP. Remember those LPs?
I still have some old LPs.
Yeah, likewise, or a cassette, and you get a set of songs, and you'd have to literally listen and try and work out what they were playing. There were no chord charts, no music written down. So literally, you had to hear and translate as best as you could within your scope of chords what they were doing, and that was a real challenge. But yeah, it certainly helped to develop really quickly.
There's one thing that's going through my head as I'm listening to this, and well, there are a number of things going through my head as I'm listening to this. One is that first time I sat down with you and you were on the piano and you showed me gospel through the ages. And you said, this is 1920s gospel, and you showed me the chord structures and the sound, and then 1930s, 1940s, etc. And it was breathtaking. You refused to let me film it because I was desperate to film it, and you wouldn't let me. One day.
Maybe one day, yeah. One day I'll
But the other thing is talking to you, and also talking to another guy Mark, who played on the last album, pianist and drummer. Now you're both black. You both come from a black culture church, and music is, you're steeped in music. Now, if I think of white culture church, okay, we're getting what some people rudely call happy clappy coming through now. And we're getting a sound that comes through now, which is predominant in Australia, in America, in all sorts of places. But that gospel sound is predominantly black and predominantly envied in white churches. We just love that sound. And also the other thing that's coming across as you're talking is the sense of encouragement. Now, when I, as a singer in a white church, to an extent, I might be encouraged, but very often there's a sense of, no, they're the ones that do it, and I'm not really wanted, or somebody else. And I've heard this so often from other musicians, not really wanted. Now, am I right in thinking that just does not happen, or did not happen in your history?
I think there was definitely a sense of encouragement. One, because it was like nobody initiated it, but this legacy of creating the next set of musicians just seemed to emerge. And I can talk about guys who were ahead of me, who the people I looked up to, and then I can talk about guys who followed me. And we're in touch on Facebook now, and we'll talk about the wonderful times of playing some big events, and they were the kids around the band learning the stuff. And now if you hear them, they're amazing. They're way just absolutely surpassed what we were doing back then.
Yeah.
So that legacy of developing and creating more was has always been there. And so likewise for singers, you'd have a good singer, then there'd be a youngster coming through who would be learning from that. It was almost like unconscious mentoring, and they'd sit alongside and then take the reins at some point and just grow in that experience. And then we'd have choirs for almost like come all who want to sing, come and sing, and kind of get a sense of that real togetherness and harmony and sound and feel and
And
vibe.
joy,
Joy, absolutely,
such joy.
yeah, absolutely. But
Just
I think it's rooted in the culture. It's rooted in the DNA of our people. I think it's just something that you go back to Africa and they talk about the sound, the drum. There are some things that are fundamentally rooted in our heritage,
yeah.
and music is one of those things that just. If you ask some guys, how did you play? Go, I don't know. I just get around instruments, and this thing just comes. I just do it. And there's some of the guys can't define it. Really can't.
That is so interesting. And of course, we sit on the sidelines and just envy
I think what's great is I think why I enjoy being with you guys. The more you grow into music, you recognise that music has so many different facets,
it. Mm.
and it's to be shared. And there's this whole sense of mutual respect and togetherness, and almost like trading what you know for what somebody else knows. And that for me is the real heart of music, that we can do our stuff together. Um,
Actually, that is, you're so right. That is lovely, isn't it?
yeah, so you write some words, and I'll go, well, that sounds kind of like this new. I want this kind of feel, and we'll fuse some bits of what we hear together, and it might have a bit of jazz, a bit of blues, a bit of somberness, a bit of gospel, and I think those things are that's what makes music
Yeah.
amazing.
Yes. And one of the things that I love is when we're just setting up for an Out of the Ashes gig, and there'll be Dave on bass, and there'll be Luke on drums, and there'll be you on piano, and Alex will be over on the guitar, and John will have his blowy thing, and you will just start jamming,
Yeah,
and it is just such a joy. And yeah, absolutely brilliant. But
jamming.
the other thing is, of course, we regularly can't get you for gigs because you've got to be up at some daft o'clock in the morning to get to church. Now, are you still doing quite a lot of church services in a day?
With lockdown, we've cut down. So
Right.
we went originally. Yeah, you'd normally do 2 services in the morning. So we'd be up a bit church for 8 o'clock in the morning, sound check, ready for a 9 o'clock start. Have a break from 10:30 to 11, then 11:15 go and do the second service, and then sometimes, depending on the rota, there might be an evening service to do as well, sort of 6:30 till 8.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was quite challenging. Lockdowns perhaps brought a bit of relief in some respects, in that we went straight to pre-recording. So on Wednesdays we'd just get into the church and set up a recording set and literally record the songs for the Sunday or the following Sunday, which was a different emphasis, different focus. It's all about getting the song right, the accuracy, how it sounds. So that became a new challenge for people to learn to sing accurately, present themselves on camera, whereas in a church service, you're not so fussed about that formal presentation. So yeah, we've done that. Now we've gone back to doing a live service. So we'll get there for 9, sound check till about 10, do a walkthrough, and then literally stream the service from about 11:15 to about 12:30. So that's
It's interesting you commenting on the importance of being able to sing accurately when you're singing online. Um, and I think a lot of our audience probably, this is something that will be quite strange to them. When you hear somebody sing live and in the room, your ear is far less critical of how accurately they're singing. But if you hear that exactly the same person, same situation, recorded, you're suddenly going, my goodness, that's not quite right there. And it's fascinating how when you're recording, you have to be spot on.
well, you've done it for many years. You understand that whole sense of, as soon as I say go, the red button goes down, and the head just goes, oh, I can't remember what I'm doing, and notes go here then everywhere, and it's a real talent. I admire, and I know even the most professional people do a number of takes to get it right, and they
Yeah,
have the hands and all sorts. But it is still a good challenge to sing in key, sing in tune, and still bring that life to the song that can be translated or transmitted online. It is more challenging. In the room, people accept the sense of the atmosphere.
yeah,
That's so important, the atmosphere in the room. We've done gigs together, and the atmosphere in the room dictates a lot of how the song comes across.
yeah,
And it's hard to get that atmosphere down the wires on someone's screen.
yeah, absolutely. So we're in lockdown at the moment. So your recording services, you're still working full time, aren't you?
Working from home full time, yes.
From home. Does that be
Talent.
good or bad?
Oh dear. I've just got on with it, to be honest. My preference, a mixture of both would be ideal.
Yeah.
I do miss going into the office. I think there are some times when you just need that connection with people. Things come up in conversation that get resolved very quickly, whereas you've got to formalize it by a phone call or get on a Zoom or a Microsoft Teams call. So it's more strained and rigid.
Yeah.
What I'm having to do, certainly with my team, is have a weekly catch up, a scheduled weekly catch up on Teams, where we Tim wag, ask how each other doing, and then get on with the work. Which is it works, but it's not the best, I think.
We have a friend, well, Alex in the band. They have a Zoom meeting to talk about nothing.
Yeah.
And I don't know how often they do it, but just to talk about nothing and to find out how the kids are and what's going on in the garden. And I think they find that very important, very valuable.
It really is important.
Yeah.
I
So
think using the house wisely to get everybody doing all their different calls and whatever else.
so you've got Charlie. Charlie is Michael's wife, or Charmarie. Sorry, I call her Charlie, and I probably shouldn't really do that. But Charmarie writing books, carrying on writing books.
Yeah.
2 boys. What are the 2 boys doing?
They're both keeping themselves occupied in terms of what they do, to music, a bit of drawing online, but looking for work as well. So it's a bit of both.
That time of life.
Yeah.
Michael, thank you very much indeed. It is so lovely to see you, and I cannot wait to get back and do some writing again.
Yeah, writing, music studio work. I love it. Absolutely.
You take care, and we really look forward to seeing you soon.
Likewise, super.
God bless.
Okay, now. Bye.
So that was Michael Davis. Now, the next time that I meet you guys online, I'm going to be talking to somebody who I met on tour, or who Kevin and I met on tour. And he's a guitarist, and he's a singer, and a songwriter, and a pianist. And actually he plays harmonica too. And is also a radio presenter.